everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Best and Worst. This is the section of the Hidden Gems podcast where we like to tell you a little bit about our picks for the best and worst of a talent that we enjoy. And it's a lot of fun. We've been doing it for about 6 months here, and we've really been enjoying it. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Ryan is here.
Hey Rachel, it's so great to be back with you once again. And today we're going to be talking about Natalie Portman. And this is an actress who had a lot of success in the 2010s and even the late 2000s. She was in Black Swan. She's in the MCU begrudgingly, but she's there. She was in the prequels again begrudgingly. She was there, but she's also one of those actresses that is consistently good and is frequently in the conversation for Best Actress, at least from what I've been able to notice.
Yeah, even in movies that aren't very successful, I think that she's usually one of the better parts, that she does a really good job in those films. So it definitely becomes difficult to determine the best and worst. What is your best of Natalie Portman?
So my best of Natalie Portman, and I went back and forth going between like V for Vendetta or this movie, and I decided to go with Annihilation. This was directed by Alex Garland, who also directed Ex Machina, and I think Alex Garland is slowly becoming like the new Stanley Kubrick in that he makes these really long and slow art pieces, but at the same time they're also very heady, but also not as pretentious as they're not pretentious, at least for me. But I think Natalie Portman knocks it out of the park with this performance. And it's basically about this scientist who teams up with these other scientists to go into this place where there is a massive void, or I believe that's what they call it. And it's this place where the animals have morphed and mutated into something different, and it's just a mystery of what's really going on there. And what I love about this movie is that Natalie Portman sells the mystery of this whole thing just brilliantly, I find. There are many scenes where she has to come across this mutated alligator, but it's like even more dangerous than a regular gator. And it's one of those situations where you would not want to be in that situation. And she sells it perfectly. And then there's the mutated bear that looked like the literal man bear pig from South Park. Like that was really good as well. And the finale is just great as well. I think Annihilation is very underrated. It's really left the conversation, and I think it should be brought back.
Well, if you follow my channel, you know I'm not a big fan of this movie. I didn't care for it, um, but I understand I'm in the minority there, and that a lot of people did enjoy it and thought that it was saying all these profound things. It wasn't for me, but I do agree that that scene with the bear is pretty good. It's pretty.
Yeah, and Annihilation can be very hard work at times. Like even I who love it, I'm like, can we speed this up just a little bit? Like the whole thing with Oscar Isaac and that whole love triangle between him, Natalie Portman, and this other guy could have been cut. But at the same time, that's like my only real problem with it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a long time to be able to recall everything that irritated me about it, but it was not for me. But I understand, you know me in sci-fi, I'm weird. So I'm glad that you enjoyed it. So I really like a lot of her performances. I really enjoy Knight of Cups. I heard and her that's probably my favorite of her artistic films. I'm a sucker for Terrence Malick. I really enjoy No Strings Attached. I think that's an underrated rom com. I like it better than Friends with Benefits personally. And there are a lot of other films that she has that I enjoy. I like Where the Heart Is with her and Susan Sarandon. But I had to go with, I think V for Vendetta is my favorite of her films. I just watched it fairly recently in January. And I think this movie is not only beautiful as far as the filming of it, but it doesn't. I like the fact that it leaves like a certain degree of ambiguity of kind of what it's trying to say. It's not an allegory in this sort of straight sense. It leaves you kind of like wondering what is happening and what are they trying to say, because she's, in prison for this long period, she's treated horrible, but then she's on the side of the masked man. And why does she do that? What is going on? And I like that about it. I like the fact that it leaves some room for sort of discussion about her choices, his choices, the cause in general, about causes, about apocalyptic kind of scenarios. And I don't know, I just dug it. I thought it was really good. And I think that if people like the Snyder cut, I think that you should watch this movie, because I think that there's a lot of similarities between the two, except for this is just over 2 hours instead of over 4 hours. So I think you'd like it. If you like the Snyder Cut, I think you'd like this.
Remember, remember the 5th of November, the
Right.
gunpowder treason and plot. Yeah, I love this movie as well. Hugo Weaving is excellent as V. He has so many great lines. He's like, "I am an idea, Mr. Creedy, and ideas are bulletproof." Just chills up and down my body.
Yeah.
And not only is this well filmed in terms of its action, there's also a lot of good slow moments too, where
Hmm.
V and Evie are having the egg in the nest, I believe it's called, and they're talking about V's plans to try and destroy Parliament and all of that. And there's a scene where V is fighting the knight, where he's like, "I am fighting the Count of Monte Cristo," and just really cool moments like that. And the whole scene with the priest, and just that whole scene is very disturbing, but necessary at the same time.
Hmm.
John Hurt is great as Big Brother, I guess, which is ironic because John Hurt was actually the main character in the 1984 movie, and yet in V for Vendetta, he's playing Big Brother basically. So I don't know if that was a
Yeah,
conscious
that's interesting.
decision. I don't know if that was a conscious decision, but it makes for a weird like shoe on the other foot kind of thing.
Yeah. So, what is your worst of Natalie Portman?
So my worst, and again, this is this may be a bit of a low-hanging fruit because it's considered one of the worst MCU movies, but I'm gonna choose Thor: The Dark World, and this movie gets picked on a lot. I'm personally a fan of it. I think it has more than its fair share of really good scenes. For example, the scene where Thor and Loki are being chased out of Asgard, and the whole banter between the two of them is a lot of fun. Natalie Portman is just there. Like you could pretty much just edit her out of that movie and it would have been no different. And she just seemed super enthused to be there. Sarcasm. Like she could have just like you could have replaced her with anyone else and it just would have been like just fine.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing between them was okay in the first Thor, but in this one it's like it's almost an afterthought. Not her fault. I think she's a good actor in the movie itself, but just I don't think she's really given all that much to do.
Yeah, it's true. There's no denying it. That and they just don't have that much chemistry, her and Chris Hemsworth. And it's one of the rare miscastings, I think, with Marvel. And how can you really blame them? I mean, she's Academy Award winning actress. I mean, you're gonna go with Natalie Portman if you have the chance, but it didn't work out very well. Well, my choice for worst is the Phantom Menace, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And I know a lot of people would pick Attack of the Clones, but I think at least Attack of the Clones has something to say and has some like importance behind it of what it's trying to do, whereas the Phantom Menace means nothing. The story, you could literally, the only part of it that matters as far as the mythology of Star Wars is the fact that Anakin was a child of the Force. If you could explain that in like a 5-minute conversation in Attack of the Clones, then you don't even need the whole movie. It does not matter at all. And she plays this, Queen Amidala, but she's, once you know their kind of their story, it's a little bit weird to have her hanging out with this little child. and knowing that they're going to get together in the next movie is sort of strange. And I mean, it's not really her fault because George Lucas doesn't like working with actors. And so even an Academy Award winning actor can only do so much with a part and without direction and without the script that's there. This just is not a good film. And I know there's lots of prequel defenders, and that's fine. But I just don't think that the story goes anywhere or matters or at all. And so I guess you can have fun with it, but I still would rather watch Attack the Clones over this, even with the cringy romantic dialogue. So that's my pick for the worst of Natalie Portman.
To be fair, she would get better in episode 3, specifically the scene where she reveals to Anakin that she's pregnant. That
Mm-hmm.
whole scene, I think, is done pretty well.
Yeah.
The prequels do get a lot of hate. I'm one of those defenders. I don't think they're as bad as people make them out to be. They're not amazing, and they're not even close to being comparable to the original 3. But in terms of like the original 3, this latest 3 that we just got, and the prequels, I'd happily watch the prequels over the sequels every day of the week and twice on Sunday, because at the very least, George Lucas wanted to expound upon, or at least give context to, what we see in the original
Mm-hmm.
trilogy. The sequels just kind of feel like, we've run out of story. Let's just do like jazz. We'll make this up as we go along.
Yeah, I mean, the sequels were definitely disappointing, but I think a lot of the ways that George elaborated on the prequels was disappointing and frustrating. Things like midichlorians, where it's just like, I didn't want to know that. I didn't need to know that. And it doesn't actually, it actually kind of hurts the mythology and the lore rather than helping the mythology and the lore. And I think that in the second movie, you start to have more of that kind of meat on the bones as far as the transition of the republic to the empire and that whole thing. There's some stuff there, right? Whereas this, it's just, I don't know, I just think Phantom Menace is just a nothing movie. It doesn't even matter at all to the story, and you have this annoying kid flying around the galaxy. So to me, it's
Woohoo!
the worst. It's the worst Star Wars movie in my opinion. So I think that it's her worst movie. So what can I say? But yeah, so there we go. The best and worst of Natalie Portman. And so let us know your picks and what you would take as your best and worst of Natalie Portman. Let us know in the comment section. We have some really fun comments lately, so we really appreciate it. And if you can share this video, we would really appreciate it getting out there. And check out the hidden gems for this week as well. We're doing Netflix this week, so take a look. And Ryan, where can people find you?
They can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at RyanCam20. Then there's, of course, my YouTube channel, which is just called RyanCam. We're recording this on a Sunday, which means my first reaction to the Studio Ghibli film Ocean Waves dropped. Spoiler alert, I was not a fan. But then throughout this week, I'll be dropping AFI project videos for Raiders of the Lost Ark and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which are incredibly late, but personal life and job-related matters kept them from being released. So what can you do? And then this coming Sunday, April 4th, myself, Rachel, and Durbin will be talking about The Prince of Egypt. We're going to be doing a big old deep dive into that and celebrating Easter Sunday. I'm not going to lie, that's probably one of my favorite videos I've done on the channel, and it hasn't even released yet. So please do check that out if you haven't, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't.
Going to be super fun. Y'all will love it. It was a really fun video to record. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So please check all of that out. And also make sure you're following the Hallmarkies podcast. Got lots of fun interviews and other stuff going on over there. And make sure that you check out our Patreon. Really appreciate all the support that we've gotten there. We have watch alongs and other fun perks that you can participate in. And then we also have our merch store, which has tons of fun designs. So please take a look at that. And thanks so much, everybody. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Bye.